Okay, so no decent tea will be, well, tea without some scones. You gotta have them. And we're gonna make some. These are really, really good. They're humongous. And I'm going to pretend you should share them. I myself will be eating the whole thing by myself, but they're huge. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna have 7½ cups of flour. And we're just going to dump that into, obviously, quite a large bowl. And we're going to blend this. We're going to add some baking soda, a tablespoon, in with our flour. Now, you're going to want to preheat your oven to 450 degrees. Scones, which are basically a type of biscuit, ends up being cooked at very high heat. And it cooks for a very short period of time. We're going to mix our baking soda into our flour a little bit. This is another one of those breads. It's kind of a quick bread, and you don't want to overbeat it. If you do overbeat your scones or you overwork them, it will make them dense. Now, some people really like dense scones, and I don't. So this is what's going to happen. I'm going to tell you how to make scones exactly how I like to eat them, and then I'm going to tell you how to make them in a way that's a little bit more standard, which is less biscuity or doughy or soft, and more of kind of a harder, crumbly, kind of almost like the texture of a cookie. And when I'm at home, I ended up making them both ways because half my family likes them one way and half of them likes the other, and it ends up being fairly simple to do. So here we go. So we've got our baking soda and our flour. We're going to add some cream of tartar. We need a tablespoonful of cream of tartar. We're going to go ahead and put that in with our baking soda and our flour. Then we're going to put in a cup and 2 tablespoons of butter. Now, you want to make sure that this is unsalted cream butter. No salt. Yuck. So, and we're going to cut these in with our pastry blender. Now, this is one of those times when I have to honestly tell you that if you decide to go mechanical on this, you will end up with a hard, dense batter. There'll be no way around it because it's much harder to control this. Even in like a big fancy kitchen mixer, it's very hard to control it from feel because you're going for what actually looks like breadcrumbs or kind of coarse cornmeal. And it's hard to get that consistency with a food processor or even a standard standing mixer. It's really very difficult to do. So you're going to start mixing that butter in, cut it in, so that you have kind of a crumbly mixture. Like I said, the flour is nice and smooth, and you're going to end up with kind of these tiny chunks, and you won't be able to see your butter. Now, I like to just kind of put my pastry blender in and cut all the way through to the bottom. I find that tends to incorporate really well, and I'm not left with these kind of flour pieces along the backside that didn't get incorporated into my biscuit. You're going to be doing this for much less time than you think. So probably right at a minute. All right, so here we go. And almost done here. All right. So to this we're going to add 2½ cups of buttermilk. Or regular milk will work just fine. We'll change the flavor a little bit, but for the recipe it'll work fine. And just mix that in. And it's going to come together pretty quickly, and it's going to be very dense. All right. Now, I grew up in the South, the Southwest to be exact, and we didn't eat a lot of biscuits in the Southwest. But I had one aunt, my Aunt Tinny, who was like the biscuit-making queen. She is incredible. And she taught me one summer, I was just hanging out, how to make her biscuits, and I had the audacity to forget it and then have to call her back later. But the process of how she did it It's pretty much this very same way. It's one of those things like someone really kind of has to show you when to stop. Like for instance, so here we're looking at this. There's a little bit of flour left at the bottom. Part of me just really wants to keep going. And the answer to that is no, stop now. So I am going to stop. So I'm going to go ahead and take my work surface and I'm going to put a little flour on it. Now, these scones, though not my Aunt Tinny's recipe, will behave much in the same way. You can freeze these. You can actually finish this. You can actually freeze this big vat of dough like this if you wrapped it in a little bit of parchment paper and then wrap that in plastic wrap. You could freeze that, and that would be fine. Or you could do the last part of this is just actually cut them into a nice shape, either rounds or in triangles, which is what we're going to do. And you can freeze those. I have to tell you, I'm a big fan of recipes that you can use and save for multiple times to use in different occasions. Sometimes you have time to make scones, and sometimes you don't. So it's definitely a nice thing to be able to put aside for some time when you're much busier. Either when you have time to either bake them off or you just want to stick it, you know, in your toaster oven or something. All right, so you can knead these a little bit. Again, don't go overboard. It's going to feel a little sticky. Now, if you're one of those people who wants to have a more dense dough, at this point, when you have a little bit of stickiness, you want to add a little bit of flour to your hands and to your surface, just a little sprinkle, and kind of work that in. Now, I'm going for kind of a midpoint. I'm not going to completely get rid of all of the stickiness because I don't want a super, super dense dough. And because I don't want a super dense dough, you normally would take this in half. So I'm going to take half of mine that has a little bit more, a little bit less flour. And I'm going to take the other half, because it's half, you need to half the dough anyways, and put it aside. And I'm going to re-knead those, actually, and add just a tiny little bit more flour than this. All right, so shape this into a round. And you want to make your center about 3/4 of an inch in the center. That's about how high you want your round dome to be. And if you just robe your hands together a little bit, the dough will come off. There you go. Right off. All right. So we're going to cut this into eighths. And you want to bake this on an ungreased cookie sheet. It's got plenty of butter in it, and it'll bake up nice. And if you put oil on the bottom of your pan, you'll find that the bottom will get crisp. And that's not really what we're going for. So this recipe actually ends up making 18 jumbo scones. Now you can do the same thing with the rest of your dough. Roll them out, knead them a little bit, and then cut them and put them on their own, separate baking sheet. And you want to go ahead and put them into the oven, and they're going to bake for about 10 to 15 minutes. You're definitely going to want to keep an eye on this. Now, I usually like to make some sort of glaze for my scones, or I like to serve them with with some cream and some berries. And luckily it's berry season, so, the berries are ripe for the picking. So here are my scones before I go ahead and stick them in the oven. So I'm going to pop these in the oven to bake. It's only going to take 10 to 15 minutes. And while we let those bake, I am going to quickly make a glaze. All right. So the glaze for the scone, which is, of course, completely optional because the scones are perfectly lovely with just some jam and butter, or you can use, cream and berries, or whatever it is that you like. But if you want to glaze them, you need a cup of powdered sugar. And normally I would go ahead and make a lemon glaze, which is nice. But since it's berry season and I'm going quite berry crazy, I am going to actually substitute this with berry juice, which turns out to be quite tart, and it's a nice substitute for your standard lemon glaze. So think of them as a half and half. If you were doing a lemon, you would want to zest a small lemon, put that in, and then put your lemon juices and mix, mix, mix. So we're going to add to our confectioner's sugar a little butter, just about a tablespoon.